Also on the panel, we have Joe Tascano from the Better Ethics and Consumer Outcomes Network, also known as Beacon. Joe is an award-winning designer, published author, and international keynote speaker. You may have seen Joe featured in The Social Dilemma, which I first saw on Netflix. It was a pretty amazing documentary, as well as on other various media outlets that he regularly contributes to. Joe is previously an experienced design consultant for Google, and he left Silicon Valley because he believes the industry misuses data and feels the issues need to be addressed through innovation rather than strict regulation. Since leaving, Joe has written a book called Automating Humanity, and he has started the Better Ethics and Consumer Outcomes Network.
Can I ask Joe to jump in and maybe share your perspective on what you think the challenge looks like for us? Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I don't have the formal slides or anything, but I'll just kind of give you maybe a little bit of a story as to why I got into this work in the first place, which I think can help shape my vision of where it's going as well. You know, for everybody who doesn't know me on the call, I was a experienced design consultant for Google until 2017. The reason I left my role was not because I thought that Google is this malicious company or that there's a bunch of intentionally evil things coming out of Silicon Valley. It is that I believe this industry is growing faster than it's prepared to. And that's good in some ways, right? We've seen more progress, social progress in the last 30 years than maybe most of humanity because of our ability to communicate. Things are moving so fast. Things are changing in positive ways, but there were fundamental flaws I saw in Silicon Valley's model. The way data is used, examined, manipulated, I felt most of it, if it were put through a proper review board, you know, IRB or something like that, that I had to do as a data scientist in college, I didn't think it would be legal. And that's not just a thing for Google. That's a Facebook, that's a Amazon, that's everybody. It's even the small, medium-sized startups that are coming out of the valley. I just felt there were fundamental errors in the way data is used, manipulated, processed, et cetera. And so I left. I've been an activist for the last near half decade. I've traveled the world speaking about these issues, trying to raise concerns and talk about how they can change this and do it on business terms, still make money, but do better business. And at first I was the crazy guy. I was the one that everybody thought, you know, should put on a tinfoil hat and live in his parents' basement and probably never have a job again in the valley. Now, 3, 4, 5 years later, everyone's like, wow, you were saying it 5 years ago. And I'm young. I know everybody here on the call has been talking about stuff for their careers and then maybe have the recognition that I got like through Social Dilemma and different things. But this whole panel here has been speaking about this, and this had historically been an issue. And now I think we're just seeing it come to public conscious because of events such as, you know, Edward Snowden bringing things to public with NSA and surveillance. You know, 3, 4 years later, you have these movies start coming out. The Great Hack, Coded Bias recently came out. The Social Dilemma was all part of it. It's just, and now we're having these leakers come out from companies and show all these internal documents, all these emails, proof that this has been happening and it was consciously done. And people ask me all the time, what do you think about this? It's getting crazier, it's crazier. I actually think what's happening is we're calcifying the truth. You know, like I said in the beginning, I was the crazy guy. Now there's been enough people step out and say this, and enough reputable names come out and say this, that the public is beginning to accept it as truth. And I think that's important in what we're doing today and what we're talking about today, because these companies, for the most part, have no financial interest in doing better. Data is an elusive asset. It has no set strict value. And because of that, it enables them to manipulate the marketplace in their favor without anyone really being able to look at it and say, well, that's wrong, that's unethical, that's problematic to society. But now we can, and people are. You're seeing that governments are reacting to public demand. In the US alone, in 2018, you know, GDPR came out, and the US, we had 2 policies that were either in proposal or enacted total in the US. Now, as of 21, we had 27 different. So, you know, in a few years, you're talking 13.5x increase in the number of laws or these proposals that are out there. You're also seeing fines exponentially grow. The first year GDPR came out, there were hardly, I think it was like 9 fines total. Now you're seeing 40, 50, 100 a year, you know, and it's because regulators didn't know what they're looking at 3 or 4 years ago. Now they're beginning to. It's only going to grow. and you're going to have organizations helping them. It's going to come like a giant fishnet cast over the industry. And the companies who are not prepared or not willing to shift are going to struggle to get through that. So what I've done since I left, it was mentioned in the intros, I've written a book called Automating Humanity, the purpose being to inform the public and to create consumer demand, because there's plenty of technical books about the stuff. We all read it, but the public doesn't have time or care to read a technical book. So they need something more general, kind of like the social dilemma was, right? A lot of technical critiques on the social dilemma, and I understand and appreciate them. But the truth of the matter is it's not for you, it's for the public, right? Beyond that, Creative Beacon stands for the Better Ethics and Consumer Outcomes Network. We help identify these problems and translate them into consumer outcomes so that we can figure out how to do this on an innovative approach rather than a strict regulatory approach. But I do believe that we need some regulatory guardrails. And so I help participate in drafting privacy laws and helping out with the trust case in the US. And I do see it coming down that path. And that's also why our work has led us to the software we've created, which we call Pulse Policy, where we are automating the process of data privacy impact assessments so that we can speed up that process for companies. We can provide them an automated service to get them in, reduce the cost, and help them navigate these additional layers of bureaucracy that are really dragging small to medium-sized businesses down and reinforcing the monopolies because they're the only ones who actually have the money to navigate all this. In regards to my stance on this, I see this as critical importance. I see this as dire immediacy to the world, to the market. And I see it as if a company does not choose willfully to move in this direction, consumers over time, maybe not right now, but over time will shift, the market will shift, and those who do not shift will get left behind.
Maybe just, I'm going to ask one more quick question of each panelist to give a bit of perspective on, and that some have already started, but Joe, what do you think we could be doing more of, or what more could be or should be done by the kind of people on this call and even more broadly?
I think one of the biggest things, and this is going to sound very fundamental, but one of the biggest things that needs to happen in the whole technology industry is to take a step back and to consider the consumer experience of this, right? So much of our work is focused on economics of business, I think, and we leave out the human aspects of this, the impact on our societies. I can't say it any simpler than I believe we're living in an era where we've just stripped out all customer service in favor of economics. We literally live in a world where nowadays we pay for the service to do the work ourselves, rather than we used to live in a world where we pay to have service. I think, privacy, data protection, data minimization, all these things, it's not only a better customer experience if you're providing these services to people. I believe you're going to see a massive increase in business value. There's this fear that if you give people rights to their data, they're going to pull out and they're not going to give you access, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the research shows actually that you will get better and deeper access to data if you are transparent and properly give control. In addition to that, let's say you have 20 or 30% of people pull out. Well, those are probably also 20 or 30% of people who are giving you fake data. I can't tell you how many times I've entered a fake email address when I don't want them to contact me because they forced me to give me that email address, or a fake birthday, or whatever it may be. Well, you as a company are still storing that data. And if you're storing fake data or duplicative data over and over again, your server space starts to grow. That's infrastructure costs for a business. I think we're going to start to see better businesses, more efficient businesses, cleaner data sets, which means less cost to hire data scientists to clean it up, and hygiene, all these different things. Once we add this value of enhanced customer experience through proper data protection and privacy and consent.
Well, that's a powerful message. I guess, if nothing else, if we can all take that message forward that says data transparency and data protection is good business, like that's a nice soundbite that we could share, I think, more broadly. And thanks for that, Joe. Joe, you want your last thoughts, and then we'll, because we're down to our final couple of minutes.
Yeah, I just hope that today's conversation has helped those on the call rethink a little bit on what they're doing with their data and the protections they provide to their consumers. And if anyone is interested, I would love to have a longer conversation with any of you. We are now onboarding companies into our service and helping them expedite their legal compliance as well as their production capabilities, which we've seen is taking hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes, as well as months of production. So if you want to extend that conversation longer and see more of our work, I'd be more than happy to. And you can reach out to me at beacontrustnetwork.com or email me directly at joe@beacontrustnetwork.com.